go live then. Hello everyone and welcome to the final part really of the International PKU Day celebration by the PKU. We have a chat with Tom, myself and Claire, who you will see on on my right sort of thing, yeah. So you'll see it, and we're just having a chat here today. You are more than welcome to get involved and chat and ask us any questions that you so wish. We'll happily go through many answers and responses and that sort of thing. But yeah, we'll start off. Claire, you'd like to introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? PKU, that sort of stuff.
Okay. Hi, I'm Claire Wilcox. I'm 27. I'm from Adhd in Kent, which is the south east of England. I'm classical PKU, so I'm on roughly around 5 exchanges a day, trying to stick to that. I'm taking the PKU, the Galen Micro PKU Easy Micro Tabs 6 times a day. I take those with vitamin tablets as well, and I've recently transferred them over to the lockdown. I'm part-time. By day, I'm an administrator. We've done a lot of BTL. By night, I'm a blogger. I enjoy my blog about kind of PKU life and how it affects me and anything I can think that might help others as to what I've already learnt kind of myself as an adult PKU.
I may have introduced myself in case people don't know. I am Tom. I'm 29. I'm from the Midlands. I think I'm classic PKU. I'm 8 exchanges, so a little bit higher, but not too much more. And I think I'm a film lecturer and filmmaker, so that's why I've been editing quite a lot of stuff today. I view my job a lot more before PKU, in a sense, and I think that's what me and you were talking about before we came on here, Claire, wasn't it? Of seeing us more than just people with PKU, in a sense. So I guess, in a nutshell, explain how you sit with the condition at the moment for yourself in terms of coming out of lockdown, and how was that in terms of managing and then coming in and that sort of thing.
Yeah. For me, like I say, I've gone through the kind of period of being off diet, being on diet, and lockdown for me especially really helped me kind of take the time that I needed to sit down and go, okay, I've got some of the basics down, but what could I be doing better? Like when you just there's nothing to do but sit down to be locked down in your house, it kind of makes it a lot easier. I know there's a lot of kind of PKU adults out there that do work with maybe PKU stuff, but I never wanted to kind of have that be my life, as well as, living with PKU, to also have my job as PKU. And ironically, I never really kind of thought I'd ever be a PKU advocate and doing all this stuff online. But actually, as I'm getting more confident with it, like I say, I realised that, what I've learned can help others, which is why I did the blogging thing. But yeah, I've been, during lockdown, I was doing food diaries. I was kind of cooking more, trying to bake more, trying to just find, okay, what do I enjoy? What does make life easier for me? And that was really nice, and I got my levels down, I think mostly around 500, which is the best they've been in about 10 years, which is awesome. But now coming back out of lockdown, going back to the workplace, I'm trying to find the balance of of eating well and eating but also working and finding the time that it takes to within the diet and within work life, the work-life balance, as it always. I think lockdown as a society, we've realised that actually the work-life balance needs to probably change a little bit, with more people working at home and things like that. So yeah, I'd say I'm probably about 60%, 60-70% at the moment. I'm doing well. There's still things I could be doing better, but also I'm probably a bit too hard on myself. There's things I think I'm doing probably really well as well.
Yeah, I think I think lockdown really gave us a different idea on what I think, because the diet needs time, doesn't it? It needs a lot. It needs a lot of time to put in. It needs a lot of time to prep, to know what you want to do at certain points and that. And lockdown kind of was like, here, have some time, and you can actually make things from scratch and that sort of thing. It's hard to switch back, in a sense. I found as your pressures become more and more, and that sort of thing. I don't know. My diet's had to adapt. It's had to go back to what it was. There's less things that have that have stuck around necessarily. I cook a little bit more, but not as much as I did in lockdown, and it's just time pressures, isn't it? That's the hard thing with it all. But yeah, in terms of that work-life balance, I think that's a really, really key thing. So if we come back onto today, you've been saying you've been watching the content through today. Which one kind of stood out as a message that you kind of was poignant to you, or that you learnt from, and that's from today?
Yeah, I think it was Susan's video, the psychologist. It was really, I mean, I asked a few of those questions because I saw my name pop up, and especially kind of how do you take a break from PKU? Because I was really struggling with it. My dietitian sounds like, oh, it really sounds like you need to take a break with yourself. Like give yourself, a bit of credit and stuff. It's like, but how do you take a break when you have a diet that takes all day, every day? You're always thinking about it. But I think that kind of advice of going back to who I am as a person. Actually, PKU isn't just all my life. I do have friends, I do have interests, I do have things that I enjoy outside of my PKU world, and that's really, I'm going to watch it again because there's so many good quick notes, but yeah, and things like that. And then interestingly, the kind of ADHD side of things is something I've been looking into recently. As you kind of calm down, being 27, you kind of go out of the stage of being emotionally all over the place. It's kind of going in, okay, what is normal, what isn't, what is PKU, what is me, and then realising there's a lot of traits that seem to be, and what can we do about that? It doesn't mean that, oh, that's it, I'm damaged goods or whatever. It's actually, yeah, there are things that can be done. We do have better understanding, of looking after ourselves and, of like memories and stuff. So no, that was really, really great. And yeah, it's been an interesting day. Yeah, it's been good fun to kind of watch stuff just about PKU, and yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, no, I think the Susan thing is hit when I was recording them and putting them all together. It's kind of like these are things that are quite new for us to hear, in the sense of treating us like individuals and adults rather than PKU adults. In a sense, it is that kind of like there are extra pressures that come in that isn't just PKU related when being an adult, in just adulting is what I call it, and just pretending to know what you actually meant to be doing at different times, and then having a condition on top of that. So I think the Susan thing kind of portrayed that quite well, in a sense. We do have... Oh, you go.
Sorry. Yeah, we do have a life outside our clinic. We do, actually. There are other things that we have to deal with. And that's why I've, especially on Twitter, I've been a big advocate of, PKU adults, that we do need support. It's not just, right, you're 18, you're done, you know what you're doing, off you go. That yes, we don't have the development risks of being a child or being a teenager, but there's still a whole nother life that you've got to figure out, of being, now I'm an adult, now I have to pay bills, I have to keep a house tidy, I have to, maintain social relationships, and we can suffer from anxiety, and we can suffer from depression just by what's around us anyway. Like I say, never mind just PKU. Just PKU is an added pressure onto that. But yeah, like I say, actually, acknowledging that, we could do more to help people with PKU. It's just, yeah, it's good to hear. It's fresh, nice to have a new aspect, new point of view.
I think if we build upon that, like relationships and friendships and that sort of thing, how has your, what I call your network of people, how have they been with PKU? How did you originally broach it with them, to that sort of thing, in terms of, was it a straight away, this is me, this is the weird stuff I eat, or was it a progressional, until you sit down at me with a dinner table, all of a sudden that's when I look a bit strange, sort of thing? What was your approach then, Claire, with your network?
Yeah, I think with my husband, obviously then boyfriend, when we met, it was very much like, obviously we'd go round to his for dinner, and I'd have to say to his mum and say to his dad and be like, this is what I have. And everyone's kind of, people generally get allergies, they understand that. So you kind of, I tend to explain things kind of as simply as possible to start with, just so they don't blow their mind, talking about amino acids and, enzymes and things like that. And yeah, that's, and most of the time what I found is, I think people can be really, find it nerve-wracking to talk to friends and family, but I've found that people generally are really interested, absolutely fascinated by it. They really want to know. They're like, oh gosh, how does that work? And how does this work? And, I think with my friends, because I'm always very open and very honest, they know that it's a kind of, it's not a taboo subject. it's not, oh, I can't ever eat meat around Claire, or I can't ever ask questions around Claire. It's kind of, actually, I like to talk through it because I like to think about it myself. You know, that's a really good question. I've not actually thought of that. Let me go have a think. And, you know, so that's been, that all my friends have been really, I've never kind of had that, oh, you should go and eat pizza. Let's all go, you know, oh, would you be tempted to eat this? It's just kind of like, oh, what would happen if you did eat this? What would happen if you did eat that? And so very rarely do I get people that are nasty. If they are nasty, then it's not really my problem. They're obviously a bit weird, you know. So, you know, it's work's always a fun one because that usually takes. Obviously, work is work. You don't really sit there and eat food and stuff, and it does take, you know, maybe sometimes a good week for them to be like, you keep having these, you know, drinks, or you keep having these tablets, and what are they? And that's when you can, introduce it bit by bit, and you play the, so what can you have game, or can you have this? Can you have chocolate? Can you have... And there's always one person at the end that goes, so can you have fish? Yes, no, I can't have meat.
Yeah, bizarrely, people don't think meat is fish.
No, it's fascinating. Actually, is protein what's not protein? I think the hardest thing is when it comes down to the really nitty-gritty stuff. It's like, well, hang on a minute, you're having an Angel Delight cake, but you said you can't have protein and that has eggs. It's like, well, I can have protein, but, you know, only a little bit a day. And I think that's where it gets really kind of complicated. And sometimes maybe I don't go into as much detail as I could because it just, that goes a bit, you know, that's the kind of everyday life that I've got to sort out. So it's not so anyone else's problem. But generally it's, you know, been really positive. You know, and especially since restaurants are so much more accommodating now, being like with vegan options and things like that, it's less of a kind of big drama now going out to eat as when I was younger of maybe having to take scales or having to, you know, find somewhere that's suitable. So no, I've always had really, like, fortunately, we've had very lovely friends, and they've always been really open and honest, and they kind of most of the time people are like, oh, okay, and you just move on and you talk something else. You know, I think it's definitely, not making it a taboo subject, I think, is the biggest thing of just, you just go, oh, this is part of me, you know, as much as anything else is, you know, oh, I like this, but not like this. But I think, and then you realise as you grow up, like, a lot of people actually have weird things wrong with them. A lot of people have, like, allergies or dodgy backs or things like that. I think that's the thing with being an adult, isn't it? Like you say, we're all making it up, actually.
Well, it's not even just that, like, it's that case of, like, people just have weird quirks that aren't necessarily an allergy or anything like that you're a bit like, that takes you back more than anything that we can bring to the table a little bit. So I do think for me it is very much about how you output it to other people is how they reflect it back to you. So if you output it as it's not a big component of me, but you got to get to know it because it is still me, sort of vibe, then they're going to then view it as, it's a bit more easygoing. They know what they need to do. Let's just leave them to do that sort of thing. And otherwise, it's a bit like, if you portray it negatively or try and hide it, you know, it's very hard to bring that in. Yeah. To try and be honest and that sort of thing. So, there's people that I've, like, I don't know, an example is, like, my partner doesn't like talking while eating. And it's just like, that for me is weirder than anything that I bring to the table. And it's like, there's quirks of, like, people can only do certain things with cutleries. And it's like, for me, that's weirder than me bringing out some scales or anything like that. So it's, society's weird the more that you integrate with it. We do have a question from Alison, which relates back to what we were saying about lockdowns, and said, do you both think lockdowns over the last year gave you both time to reflect and think about more with your PKU, which is kind of what you were suggesting, wasn't it, Claire, in the sense of, like, taking a step back, and how did it make you reflect more upon just PKU as a whole and how you manage it?
I think it's kind of, like you say, you had the time to sit back and be like, okay, what is good for me? What do I enjoy? And realising, I don't know, I think it was a strange time, obviously. It was so, it was like, oh, it's a really nice restful period. No, actually, it was really paranoid because I was worried I was going to lose my job any minute, as well. So, and it was kind of almost it was a nice distraction of kind of, oh, there's nothing else to do. What can I do? Oh, maybe I'll try and bake something. Maybe I'll try and cook something. And then you're like, oh, actually, this isn't as hard as I thought. So maybe I'll try some other things. And like I said, I think it is just having that time to maybe it not being the centre of your world. In a way, weirdly means that, because I'm trying to balance work, I'm trying to balance PKU, I'm trying to do everything like that. Actually, it just meant that you had time to sit back and go, oh, let's give this a go, let's give that a go. You have the energy to then try different things out, to actually, to do different things, that and the energy that you wouldn't have normally on a kind of day-to-day one. And then you realise that actually, things aren't as hard, things aren't as difficult as you maybe thought when you finally put the energy in. So it was it was an interesting time, wasn't it? It was strange, and then I started blogging as well, and that's kind of helped me reflect back on what I've learned. That was able for me to be able to go, okay, so how did I get to this point? What have I done? And it was a good way to me to reflect and talk and think, what I've been through.
Well, no, I don't like writing, so I didn't necessarily do blogging. But what I did start in the first lockdown was, right, I'm not seeing anybody because I lived alone, so I was like, right, okay, I'm just going to cook for people on the internet. And whether or not people decide to chip in or watch, it doesn't really matter. It would force me to actually get a little bit more experienced in cooking and a little bit more dishes than just pasta, which is what my go-to dish of that's the only thing I can make is pasta. And now it's a little bit more elaborate, but it was that sort of like allowing you time to actually go, okay, I've made it to this point. This is what this is what it was like when it was working. I'm not got as much pressures with the working and everything else that you've got to juggle. How can we make it for me it was, how can I make my diet a little bit more streamlined and a bit more easier to manage for when things get back up, that it doesn't just all go to waste and go, actually I do need to find time to do baking occasionally. I do need to find, and prioritise that a little bit more than what I did before lockdown, if that made sense. And I think once I've realised what I need to do but the problem was in the first lockdown, my exchanges went up because I was able to make a lot more stuff. And now as we've gone out, my exchanges have gone down because of my levels going a little bit higher, and I was like, okay, I'll reduce down my exchanges. And I'm like, great, so when I work and when I'm really busy, I can eat less protein. That's not very nice. I'd rather be off work then and eating as much protein as my body can handle. So that was quite a weird discovery for me to find while I was in lockdown. Did you find level fluctuation different when you were less out and about compared to general life?
My levels definitely went a lot lower. And I think it was because I actually at the time it wasn't grab and go snacks. It was actually, I could have a proper cooked meal for lunch, and I could have the time to sit down and eat it. And it's the biggest change that I made for outside of lockdown as well, was that I actually take time in the morning to have breakfast. So I get up half an hour early, and then I come downstairs and I'll sit for half an hour and just eat breakfast, do nothing else, because that was the biggest thing I realised, is that rushing about in out, it's just, it wasn't any good, because then you don't feel like you're ever at home, do you? Because you go rush out for work in the morning, you rush in at night, and then go to bed. So that was the biggest change. But my levels, seem to be getting better, I think, because I could just focus on my food easier. It was just, like I say, we just had the energy to be able to focus on what I was eating, how much I was eating, the energy to write down on a food diary what I was eating. So my levels were a lot better, and I think my exchanges haven't ever really moved and gone up or down for years. They've never gone down that much. And I think that's the hard thing of kind of knowing what will take that much, to have more exchanges. But for now, I just try and keep some kind of maintenance going with levels at the moment. So
how do you split that 5 then? Because that sounds really pompous coming from a person that's 8 exchanges, but it's like 5 is what I normally leave after a breakfast. So once I've had my breakfast, I have 5 for the rest of the day. So how do you split it? How do you mix it around?
Well, technically, I should be on 4, but I asked.
You push.
Yeah, I asked the dietitian. I was like, please, can I have just one extra, because because I just couldn't manage 3 meals with only 4 grams of protein. And I felt that maybe giving that one extra would then allow me to have a bit more flexibility to then it kind of outweighs it. I don't know, it makes sense in my head. But basically I usually have 1 for breakfast, which is like the cocoa milk yogurt, which is the best thing ever. Half no, half a gram of yogurt, half a gram of Rice Krispies or Tesco's rice snaps with some berries, and then I'll have one or two for lunch, depending on what snacks I've got. You know, if I've got a pot of pasta, I might have half a bag of crisps, you know, with free pasta, and then depending on what I have for, you know, for lunch, obviously, is what I have left for dinner. So if I want something big, like a checker potato that could be like 3 grams, I'll make sure to have a small lunch. Or, you know, if I had a big lunch, then I'll have the pasta for dinner. That's kind of how I worked it around. So that's generally, you know, I generally have 1 for breakfast, 2 for lunch, and then 2 for dinner. Is pretty much how I want it to go. But, you know, obviously, it was life.
But it must require a lot of making from scratch, though. You know, to make 5 spread throughout the day, and like if you've got quite, you know, if you are based at home, I could see where that would be a benefit of having a bit more time to make meals up. Did you just say that you put crisps in pasta though?
No, crisps with pasta. Sorry. So if I have like really big kind of carby dinner, then I won't have, you know, crisps or something with it. But yeah, it's. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, it doesn't matter about exchanges. It doesn't matter about what you're eating. If you're putting crisps in pasta, that's weird. That's just weird. On the cooking from scratch thing, Polly asks, when you both started cooking and baking a bit more, where and how did you find the recipes? So I guess while you have a think, I'll answer, and then we can go to you if you want, Claire. So a caveat for me, I guess, to state is that I'm vegan. I'm vegan by choice, so that restricts me even more.
What?
I know. Very big into animal rights when I was 10. So, and it was that. It was that case of like I made the decision then, and then slowly people became a bit more vegan, so it became a bit more normal. So the main thing that I start with is vegan-based veg recipes. So I just search for and then make adaptions. So I don't necessarily search for PKU recipes. If it's like a dinnery thing, I normally stick to finding it online and making slight adaptations, or taking out a bit of veg, or taking out something that's a little bit higher in exchanges, or something like that. But if it's PKU like baking and that sort of stuff, then I typically do go, I don't know, PKU banana, but that was the thing, wasn't it, in the first lockdown, banana bread. So I'd never made banana bread, so it's like PKU banana bread. Who does it? I think I found an Australian recipe or something like that, and I was just like, I'll just adapt it to be here and the measurements. So across any part of the internet, really, I used to say. Do you differ with your sources, Claire, or is it pretty much, you know?
Yeah, I get most of mine from Twitter. I've got lasagna sheets, so I got pro-mini lasagna sheets, and I'm like, I have no idea what to do with them. Help! And very kindly, PKU parents, I love you all. Sharon Buckley, big shout out. She's given me a lot of the recipes because they've had to cook for their kids, and you know, and found these recipes out and things like that. And my mum, I love her to bits. She wasn't the biggest cook, so I'm borrowing other people's mums and parents and things. And that's, you know, that's been really great because I'm not much of a baker, but you know, if I can see, I think I find recipes very overwhelming, like when you see them on BBC kind of, you know, recipes and things like that. So for some reason, when someone else words them, like someone kind of normal like that, I know I can understand it better, I can follow it better, because it's not, you know, 100 grams of this, or it's like you get some lasagna, you get a tin of tomatoes, you stick it in a pan, you warm it up, and, you know, but I can follow that, that's all right. So yeah, I think just basically from other people we've done, you know, I've then, what I like to do is I get a base recipe from someone, so like say lasagna, or you know, a pasta sauce or things like that, and then when I know the basics, I then like to change it up. I then like to add things and try different things, and because I know the basic of like, okay, this will work without me burning anything or without me going horribly wrong. But yeah, and then I go from there. But yeah, it's you know, going back to exchanges thing, I think that's the thing with Kuvan, isn't it? That's one of the big hope of being able to go, you know, like the great boy who went from 5 to 15 grams, and for, you know, anyone else, oh, that's not a cure, but for me, oh my look, 15 grams would make a world, make so much difference. That's dizzying, you know. But then it's interesting, he talks to other people, and having more grams of protein doesn't solve anything, but in my head it does.
I think, yeah, well, We'll go on to, because I think Anisha's asked us something about non-diet treatment, so that will get into the Kuvans and stuff like that. But yeah, the base, what started me off in lockdown 1 was a lot of recipes from my mum, which was put in the language that you were just saying, of like, so you shove it in here, you do this, you do that, and it's not fancy, and it's not fancy terminology or anything like that. And I was like, right, as long as I get something out that I can eat, and I'll eat anything because I've made it, I'll force myself to eat it, then yeah, I was very much the same from the start basis with my mum, of just going, just tell me what I need to do, base level, and it gets a result. That's it. And then I become more elaborate. So
and things like that. Because with that, I've got something to say now. Carry on, I forgot what I was going to say.
No. So Anita said, and we'll move it, I think, coming on from that Kuvan ideas, she was like, can it be controversial? I don't know if it's controversial. What are your views on non-diet treatments?
I think Kuvan obviously is the door opening. It's what we need to get the other ones in, but obviously being classical PKU, not sure whether it'll work for me. So it's not the one I'm jumping up and down for quite yet. Peg Pal, that's the good stuff. That's the injectable enzyme, which I know a lot of people in America are on, and things like that. And it's interesting, isn't it? There's always this thought of, are you making yourself kind of a human hamster? Like, what we don't know, long term effects, we don't know, things like that. And then it's kind of, there's always that balancing act. I think if you've got PKU, of if I could be signed up tomorrow for genetic engineering, I don't know what the outcomes is, but it could change your life. Would you do it? Or is it okay now? Are you are you getting on okay with just kind of the PKU diet? And I think that's always an interesting thought that we all have to have. But I think I'm excited.
Where do you sit on it then? Don't fence it. If someone said to you, sign yourself up, you don't know what the outcomes could be, would you be first in line?
Probably. Yeah. I've always been like that. Well, like whenever any new substitutes have come out, or new studies or new trials, I was like, yes, please. Because more than anything, even if it's not a great success, the great thing about science is that there's always something to be learnt from it. It's never a waste, is there? There's always something to. So I would, my hard thing is that I know I've spoken about this before, is that I don't like getting my hopes up, and that's a hard one, because Kuvan's been around for 20 years, technically. But I can't sit here and think, 'cause my dad asked me that question. He's like, well, basically, by the looks of it, your diet's probably going to be sorted in the next 10 years. By the time all the different treatments are coming in, it doesn't look like you have to worry about it in about 10 or 20 years' time. It looks like you could probably eat an old... And I was like, yeah, but I can't think like that. Yeah. I have to think in the now.
I think that's a key thing, really. I think there's a danger, and my philosophy is quite of like, until someone says that this is categorically rolled out to everybody, or rolled out to the people that it affects, I will keep sticking with what we have at the moment, because I don't... In my head, I think it's a dangerous game if you are, and this is obviously my views, people can have all different ones, I don't know, that's my caveat. The danger for me is that people wait for this to happen, and by the time that it waits, that, it's not going to be beneficial, or, you could be waiting for that long that it becomes that it's not beneficial to you. And it's like, there's a base level of trying to sort out. The diet the diet is great, but there are a lot of issues still with that. So
it's got a lot to be ironed out before we get. There's like the drinks, for example, performant on the tablets. It's like, oh, we're trying to find a low calorie option. I'm like, just please make them taste nice. More than low calorie and all things like that. I just want them to not make me feel sick. Not particularly bothered about the calories. And that's like you say, there's other things that need to be sorted as well. And it's so great, and that's why I love all these PKU companies that are like, no, let's try and make better pasta, let's try and make better foods and things like that. And it's like, yes, thank you so much, because we have got a lot, and we've got so much more than back in the 60s, and it's amazing how far it's come, but doesn't there could still be so much more, can there? Like the home testing kit.
Well, the home testing thing's huge. The fact that I have to wait half a week to nearly a week to work out what I was like half a week and a week ago is not beneficial to make reactive steps. So I think if the problem for me, and yeah, they might not ever want me to ask or do one of these again because I say this, but it's like Kuvan is fine, and Kuvan will help a certain amount of people, and I think the problem is it doesn't help everybody, and that's why they're a bit like sort of thing, because it doesn't solve it and it doesn't react with everyone. For me, with the PKU diet thing, if we get everything ironed out that it's the easiest that it can be, and still people are struggling with it, which I know that people will, then you have more of a, okay, you know, like if there's home monitoring and people have the option of, you know, pricking themselves and knowing instantly what their result is, like we've done with the lateral flow tests. Yep. Why can't we do that? You know, and then you can make reactive steps, you can change things, or the prescription service be a bit better, that it's not limiting people to products and stuff. So I think, I hate needles, so Peg Valiase is like, whoa, the idea of...
If it means I can eat much as I want, kneel me up. Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? It's like the home testing kit would only improve because then we could make better studies, because we wouldn't have to wait for the week for the home blood results as well. Yeah. So does Kuvan work? But yes, you know, try another one. Yes, it does. You know, we just
exactly.
Cells. And I remember, you know, saying, "Oh, they're working on the home testing kit. Oh, we're trying to make it work with an app." And it's the same. No, I don't care if it works with a mobile app. I just want it to work. Just
give me it, because what I think would be really interesting is what we've just said about the differences between pre-lockdown, lockdown, and post-lockdown. Is I could look at what I've done in the last day and go, right, if I work like this is what it's going to do to my levels. At the moment, I can't do that, because unless you keep a diary element of everything that you do, you're not going to know, sort of thing.
Which
so it's
really, and you do. I have weeks where I try and do food diary, and there are weeks where I'm like, you know, I just want to get to work and survive.
Yeah.
Just you know. It is interesting with the you know with talking about the Peg Pow and the Kuvan and things like that. I forgot where I was going to go.
I think, well, we've got a question about Peg. I don't know if we're not scientists. We don't know this necessarily, Polly. But interesting. Last I'd heard with Peg Pow, they still had some big side effect problems, as it's a plant enzyme. Has this improved? I'm part of that worldwide group on Facebook. I don't know if you are too, Claire. Yeah. I think there are people with side effects. There are people that it really benefits, and I think it's from what I can gather, it's quite similar to, you know, everybody's having this vaccine at the moment. Some people react, some people won't. And
acid drink, some people get really bad stomach aches, some people don't. It's going to be that thing, you're messing with body chemicals. That probably.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, that's always going to be the risk, isn't it? Like you said about signing yourself up for these things. So, but I do think, you know, the Kuvan is I call it the gateway drug. It is kind of gateway. It is the gateway drug of, like, if you get this to help certain people, then if another thing becomes a lot more reasonable to bring into the market, then it almost opens a door, hopefully, and it's not a battle for each drug. I think is probably what everyone's hoping for a lot more. Yeah. But I've said I'll give a huge amount of cash if you give me a home monitoring kit. I'll happily, you know. So Duncan asks,
You think of diabetes, for example, you know, they do their blood levels, and then based on their levels, they decide what they're going to eat. Exactly. And I don't know if you've heard, like, a radio advert comes on going, oh, you can now do, you know, there's home automated things for diabetes that you have it on your phone, and I sit there going, no.
No, I've had a few students that could tell me hour by hour what their blood sugars are doing because of their, you know, and it's just like, that's really easy. So then if I know my levels are high or they're getting towards it, you have this appropriate action that you can do to get it down.
And I'm feeling a bit tired and angsty and angry and upset. Oh, my blood level's 800, that'll be why. Or I'm feeling really lethargic. Oh, they're 100, that'll be why. Like, you can, do something about it. So fingers crossed.
So coming on to blood levels, because Duncan says, are either of you able to guess what your levels are according to how you feel when you do your blood test? I have inklings. I do have feelings of, I know if I fall asleep at the drop of a hat, or I'm a little bit more lethargic of wanting to sleep during the day, that's either I've got really low levels or I've got really high levels for me. So I kind of have a general idea of if something's going to come back. I can kind of get it now because I do it every week. But there's a range of between about 100, I run levels about 100 to 400. So if it's within that range, I don't really know if it's 100 or if it's a 400. But if it's above that or below it, I can tell. I think everybody has their own different range, don't they, in the sense of what is their norm and then what is their out of norm. So can you tell yours when you're taking it then, Claire?
My range is usually between 500 and 700. Like when I was on the strict lockdown diet, it's usually around 400 to 500, and that was really good. I can definitely tell it's really interesting. This is one of those things of, why it's so good to have a PKU community is you talk about things like this, because there are so many things that you like. I didn't realise that was a result of a high level until someone else goes, oh, I feel this too, and you go, oh yeah, like the sleeping, and just you mentioning now that you feel more sleepy in the day, and I have that. I think I definitely noticed when I was off diet for a little bit, for that little bit of time, it was during kind of 16 to 18. I was very foggy headed, very tired, and I was constantly like that. And then when you come out of that, you're like, oh my gosh, how was I living? But I think it's hard for me to tell. I don't know. I think because I don't know, being classical PKU, I don't know if I'm really sensitive to even the slightest level change, because I feel it. But I couldn't tell you now like what my level was. I couldn't figure out kind of how I'm feeling based on. This is what home testing kit would be really good, because I think it changes throughout the day. But I know if I'm on a high level, I tend to be more emotional. I tend to be more upset easily. I tend to be more tired and more lethargic. And it's the circle of destruction, as I call it. You come in, you're tired from work, and then you don't eat, and then you can't be bothered to cook because you're lethargic, and then you get more hungry, more tired, and you can't even be more bothered, and you just ate a damn meal, you'll be fine. But so I definitely, I've realised the last couple of years that not eating enough is also just as bad for me, and that really affects my levels as much as eating too much does. So I can tell generally when I'm over, but I don't think I've ever been under. I think I'd be very surprised if I was ever under levels to know what that feels like.
No, but I think it's that working range though, isn't it? Like, I think if you can't necessarily pinpoint if you're in the working range, but then you notice when you're out of that working range, and that's I think that's both for both of us. Obviously, our range is. I think yours is 200 is a small range to know. You know what I mean? Like in terms of, it's not much to hit. So I think it's that case of I normally know more as a reaction to I know that if something's going to be pushing it than if it's a normal one. If it's a normal one, I take a blood test and go, I'll see what the level comes back at. If it's one that's kind of pushing, or I feel like I've had foggy head, or I've had a bit more unreasonable emotions throughout the days and that sort of thing, of being a bit more snappy, then you're like, if this comes back at this, I would expect it to do, or something like that. So
one thing I'm trying to experiment with is exercise and blood levels. That's where I'm going to the gym more often now, and my lowest level that I've ever had in the last probably 15 years was when I was working with a personal trainer, kind of a new year kind of fix things, and she was doing a full diet for me, obviously working around PKU diet. I was doing gym 3 times a week, and she was watching everything that I was eating and things like that, and I was 200. My blood was 2, and I was like, I didn't even know that was physically possible. And I think that's something that we're looking at studying, is the exercise and how much that has for feed, because different exercises also don't help. I think just straight cardio I think makes levels worse, but I'm not obviously personal trainer or any dietitian and things like that, but I think that's one I'm definitely trying to experiment with, is if you have more exercise, your metabolism works faster, so therefore you can potentially, your level should be getting better. But that's something I'm experimenting with. It's an experiment, isn't it, with blood levels? It's kind of, I'm going to try this and see what happens. I'm going to try this and see what happens. Oh, it's high. I won't do that anymore.
but that was the case, like, for me in the first lockdown, my levels went to the floor, and then I had to keep increasing my protein. But I was doing yoga every day. I was like going out for walks and that sort of stuff, and then it kind of dawned on me, which was the first time in all of the years that I've had the diet, of going, so it's not just what I eat, it's actually what I do every day. And I do think that's an unwritten. It's not really talked about in dietitian appointments or anything like that. Of going, so what do you actually do for work? What exercise do you do? It's not about just what you take in your body. I could be sat on this and just be doing nothing, and I'd eat the same food as if I'm going out and doing something, and my levels would be different. And there's a reason for that. It's not about the food being consumed, it's about what you're doing with it. And I think that is certainly a grey area for us to look at, sort of thing, because...
could people potentially be on more exchanges if, like, okay, let's, have a, at the clinic, our personal trainer or someone, or, the dietitian that go, right, if you do X much exercise, you can have less, you can do more, you have more exchanges. If we work out a routine of exercise, that would be really cool, wouldn't it? To be able to be like, oh, if you do so much cardio, so much strength exercise, that actually would improve your diet.
Well, even if it's not the food, even if it's just like, if we have to home monitor and go, your levels are a bit high, if you do these exercises, it will help your metabolism, it will bring down your levels, and it's like, this information would be really, because at the moment we don't really have much to combat high levels. No. It's either you cut some, what I mean? There's not much in a sense that is a go-to thing to help with. We do have, Claire's mentioned that you've been off diet and on diet. What made you go back to diet, and kind of, was it the steep learning curve that people say it is, or, because it was a couple of years, so it wasn't necessarily too... There's some people that have been doing like 10, 15, and then it's like, okay, you're unpicking quite a lot of your life, sort of thing. But yeah, what was the differences between off diet and on diet for you, apart from obviously your moods and head and fogginess and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so like I say, when I was 16, I kind of went off diet, went to college, the dreaded thing all parents fear of the child going away, having independence. And it wasn't like at first it wasn't really a big rebellion, but it was kind of, you have a whole lifetime, a whole childhood of control. They're going to do it. My things I love to say the most is, other people do, drugs and drink, and PKUs do donuts and pizza. As a teenager, that's what we do.
I mean, the funny thing is when our blood levels go all over the place or change and that sort of thing, it gives the same effect of being drunk. So we don't even need to drink.
I'm bad. I'm having a donut.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was, and it was kind of I wouldn't say at the time I was off diet, because I was still trying to have my drinks. My mum's still cooking for me and things like that. But, just definitely getting more and more relaxed, and then having less and less drinks. And, I gained a lot of weight. It's one of those things I noticed. I gained about 2 or 3 stone in a year. Went up 3 dress sizes, as well as, like I say, the foggy mood, the headache, the things like that, and kind of what brought me back is, I guess, I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. The first kind of buzz of, I'm eating this, I'm eating that, that's really nice, it's really delicious, was kind of going off, and actually I just felt sick, and I just felt tired, and I just felt emotional, and again I was gained all that weight, so I felt horrible because of the didn't feel great in my own body image and things like that. And then another side of it was the whole kind of pregnancy thing of okay, what if I do get pregnant, have unplanned children, which is obviously, that's another topic, but that you're most PKU women can relate to being kind of the given the scare factor of don't have kids unplanned, don't have things like that. But it's always one of those things of like, right, one day we may want kids, so if I get on diet slowly now, then eventually it'll be less of a, go straight to pre-con diet. But yeah, and then like I said, I've done the big change for me was doing the personal trainer. That was the kind of thing that really helped, because it helped me see food in a different way. I never weighed anything. I hated the idea of weighing things, which I think probably is understandable. I was probably, I had a phobia of the scales. I couldn't get them out, and I was just like, so. And then, but having it under the guise of kind of a diet, as in fitness, and they, like the personal trainer, done all the food weighing and done, right, you need to have this many grams of yogurt, this many grams of this many grams of that, all within my diet. Again, like I say, she worked with me. She was awesome at working with me and what I could eat, what I couldn't eat. And it kind of made me rethink of what I thought of food, that it's there to give me life and not just something that's either restrictive or something that's rebellious. And then as I've kind of, and I kind of went back off, went back on. But I think eventually you do start to realise, the positives of being on diet that grossly overweigh the negatives of feeling ill, or feeling tired, of having arguments all the time. So that's what's kind of led me. And then it's been the small steps, so weighing stuff bit by bit, putting more and more food on prescription, getting rid of more protein foods. I don't have any kind of snacks above 1 gram of protein in the house, for example, because there's no point, because I don't where I'm on so limited. If I have crisps at 1.5 or 2, that's half my, and it's just little changes like that. And then eventually kind of I get back into finding the substitute that works for you, just giving everything a go. And then you realise, yeah, actually I do feel a lot better for it. And you just don't want things that are bad for you anymore, because it's just not worth it. It just makes you feel awful. And occasionally when I do have the odd, let's go eat whatever I want. And then I'm like, I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't do that. It wasn't very nice. So it's been it's been emotional for sure, but I think it is hard. And it's hard, there is still times, I think, the mental health side of things, of going like, oh, this is me, this is my life, this is PKU, but, and then you have a nice day out with a friend or things like that, and they can take your mind off it and you feel all right and kind of get on with life, So, yeah, it's been an interesting journey the past couple of years.
But it sounds like what you've been doing is actually, because the PKU can cause quite a negative connotation with very conscious eating, and that food relationship is it varies for a lot of people, but it is very micromanaged to the nth degree, isn't it? So it sounds like, to me, it just sounds like you've kind of readdressed your relationship with food more than anything. Yeah. And rather than, like in my teenage, I had an eating disorder. And that was really right. I may not be able to, I plan everything that I eat, but I also plan what goes into my mouth, sort of thing. And it's a bit like, it's a power element in that. But then you really do have to kind of go, right, let's just view food for what it is, and don't view it as the enemy, and don't view it as like this kind of too restrictive thing, and actually almost open your eyes to a lot of getting a bit more inventive and getting a bit more like looking at things that you might not have looked at before. I think, you can live quite a basic, similar diet. But in a way, especially when you're saying that you need to find things that are 1 exchange or lower, you have to get a bit more adventurous in the things that you're going to eat. There's an element that you can be a little bit picky, but a little bit less picky than most people, because you're like, let's just try and take on as much food as we can, as variety, isn't it, in a sense? But no, it just sounds like you've been readdressing your relationship with food, which I think is, when I saw it on the survey a couple of years ago for the NSPKU, I was like, yes, finally they're talking about people's relationship with food rather than just expecting us to be okay with it, in a sense. Yeah. And I think that's a huge stepping stone, really, in the adult community.
And I think, like I say, at the moment, what I'm trying to do is give myself a bit of a break. Like, I'm so like, oh, I've not been weighing everything, I've not been doing the food diet, I've not been doing like that. And it's like, no, it's okay. Like, you've done this well, and you've done that well, and you're doing all right. And, and so for example, if I go out for a meal, I've always had this thing of, if I go out for a meal with family, I won't weigh it, I won't count it, because that's like once a month. And there isn't any PKU perfect diet. There isn't any PKU perfect food items at the moment. There's vegan stuff, and obviously vegan stuff still isn't ideal, because it's still like breadcrumbs, or it's not the beans and lentils necessarily, but there are things, the chips you still have to, and you go, actually that's okay. Like, this isn't a whole pizza, this is, it's okay just to allow for that, and to give yourself a bit of a space, and not have everything so I must always be perfect all the time, because it's just, you just do what was within we can physically manage. Just try your best.
Yeah. On one last, Polly, you don't have to do one last question. Should put one last question, please. I'm like, you can ask us as much as you want. We're here for a limited time, but you can ask us as much as you want in that time period. Where do you find has the biggest the bigger PKU community? Facebook, Twitter, Insta, somewhere else? And I think that kind of boils down to, there's size for me, or there is that case of effective communication, I think is another thing to also judge where communities are, isn't it? So how about you then, Claire? Because we're on most of the different platforms in a sense. So Where do you find works better for what things?
I think that's it. That's exactly it. I think there are different things that work better for different people. I think Facebook is really good for parents and families that want to share ideas and questions and things like that, and have a really open forum to talk about stuff. But kind of maybe on debates, raising awareness, for example, Twitter is really great because you use hashtags and you can tag people and you can tag politicians, and that's my favourite thing. It's my real jump on a politician. We've become the cancel culture, of like, why aren't you doing this? What is going on? What is happening? When are we going to get Kuvan? And that, I think it's great for that. And I think it's just down to personal preference. Like, I like Twitter personally because I can talk one-to-one with people, or you can talk as a collection. I tend to avoid Facebook as it is, like, say, well, I'm probably, I might be, wrong or things like that. But it just seems to be kind of new parents, families, things like that need advice from each other, need supporting each other. And that's not what I need, because I know most of the things, and bless, you always get one mother that's like, kind of, what if my kid has pizza? And it's like, your kid's 3, one thing at a time, like, one thing at a time.
How many plates do you want to juggle? That sort of thing, isn't it?
And everyone's doing such an awesome job. But, I think they're everywhere. Instagram's good, I think, for sharing meals, sharing ideas, kind of obviously very visual things. So I think, it's you try everything and just see what you like, what feels right, what works. So, I very much resisted having an Instagram page about my PKU for quite a while, because I was like, well, I don't want everything to be about PKU in my life. And I try and avoid that with Twitter, especially. Like, yeah, PKU is a part of me, but it isn't me. It's not who I am. And I don't have much to share. Like, there's only so many pictures of pasta you can you can share, like, here's a pasta meal, again, here's a pasta meal. But, and Instagram I use for kind of, here's something I've made. When I finally kind of got a finished good product, that's when I'll be like, right, this is what I've done, this is the recipe. So I think there's different things to use with different stuff, and obviously it's social media, you can make it what you want, really. So that's what I would say. Just, I think I prefer Twitter personally, but that's just because that's just how I am.
Yeah, I think Facebook is very family orientated. I think that has its place, and I think that's very good, because obviously the Facebook groups are closed. It's not about being externally reaching or anything like that. It is about, I kind of view them as problem-solving pages in a sense, or I see this new thing, can I have it, sort of thing, and almost a little bit of news to a degree, because it does show new products and that sort of thing. But it is also based around families. You have people go, I've just literally had a kid been born the last day.
Yeah.
What is PKU? Is PKU okay? Sort of thing. And that certainly is great, and it's good, and the community needs that. Again, kind of, I chip in with cooking streams. That's it really on Facebook. Because on Twitter is mainly used for PKU for me. Because it's that point of contact. The companies are on it as well, which I think is useful. It's externally facing, so it keeps a level of accountability about what's been said. And also you see, in an adult PKU setting, you see working PKUers as well as yourselves actually juggling this, the diet and working and that sort of thing. Instagram is purely, because I do filmmaking, purely professional. I don't do anything PKU on it. I occasionally post up a meal that I do, and my students find it very interesting, because they're like, oh my god, I thought you just ate bushes or something like that. So they're pretty blown away that I eat something different than just what a typical vegan person might eat. But yeah, I think recipes, it's great for visuals with Instagram. I don't actively go and search them out. And I do think you do need that break occasionally, like Claire was saying, in terms of going... And I think that's what Twitter kind of does, in the sense with the idea of, unless you are a purely PKU account, you do also see some personality about the person as well. Whereas when you're on the Facebook groups, you're only posting in those Facebook groups for something PKU related. And it's kind of a bit more a mission to get a certain information out of people. So I think it's each to their own, but I think being across all of them, you don't necessarily miss anything. And it's just I think certainly, I don't know how you felt growing up with PKU, but it's quite a lonely journey, isn't it? And now the internet's kind of opened that up a little bit more. I don't know, how did you find with the teenage to adult transition? It was kind of like you kind of just left alone, aren't you, in a sense, and told good luck sort of thing.
That's the thing. It's like it's very lonely because it is, a rare disease. I was telling my friends about this earlier, and I said it's the most common rare disease. So I was figuring, get your head around that one. It's a bit weird, but
those two words should not follow each other. Yeah,
it's funny, but so you don't meet any kind of people around, and I've part of the NSPKU's Kent support group, and it's crazy. There's so many people within 30 miles of me that have PKU. There's about 10 people in this place, and it's like. But you would never, of course, know. We don't have a mark or birthmark or terrific scar or something saying PK. You literally would never know. So I think that's the thing. It's hard to talk to someone and your friends and family understand. But there is that level, especially when you go to a conference, of like seeing someone else sit there and have their substitute as well. It kind of feels like, no, I'm not alone. There's just another level of understanding and kind of acceptance and things like that. And like I say, the PKU. The teenage to adult transition, you do feel kind of quite alone because your friends are maybe going out for drinks and stuff, and you're going out with you, and you're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do, and you've got this thing PKU, and how much of it is me, when and I think my parents would agree with it. All through when you're a kid, you want to be the special kid, and my special diet and my special drink, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I don't want to be special anymore. I want to be like everyone else. I want to be normal. I want to have
blending process. Yeah, you want to blend.
You just want to fit in and just be part of the crowd, and that's such an interesting turnaround point of going, no, I want to be. And then as you come out of it the other side, you go, actually, no, it's okay being me. It's my PKU doesn't define me. It's not who I am. My Twitter page is me. It's not a PKU Claire. It's Claire. Yeah. So I share other points. I share other views. I share other things. Maybe sometimes not always. I think with PKU adults, I think we're always wary of oversharing for the PKU parents because you don't want to scare them, but then limiting potentially support we could give each other. So I think it's that thing of trying to be open and there for each other with also being aware there's an outside community of someone who's got a little baby boy and someone's going, oh, PKU is really,
Yeah.
Like, oh no, they have to, so.
Well, I think the positive thing with that though is that I don't know how, again, as I was growing up, probably the same with you, you didn't see adults past a certain age. So I do think there is a benefit, although it's like we don't want to necessarily go get your kid to stick to diet all this time and they'll turn out good. It's kind of like it is useful for them to see an end goal in a sense.
I know my parents and my dad especially would have loved to met an adult version of me. They would absolutely love that because my dad would say that he never could imagine me on a date. He can ever imagine me sitting at a bar, actually having a drink, having, and I think, I know they've talked about it before, obviously COVID and things like that, but having a joined meeting of PKU adults and PKU parents, I think that would be so good just for the parents to be like, yeah, I'm I'm adult, I'm married, I have a house, like we do turn out okay. It goes a bit bumpy, but yeah, we have a life and we have a social life and we go out for meals and have a drink. I remember at the PKU, network when we met, this grandfather came over to me, sat down at me straight in the eye and was like, but can you have alcohol? And that's all he cared, that his grandson wanted a pint with his mates. As grandson's about 3, 4.
He's starting early. That's
But it is, isn't it? That's the thing with PKU. It's so social. Food and drink is so social, and it's so important. And it's like, no, it's okay. Like, yeah, I have a rum and coke. I said I have, a vodka and coke. I said I have cider. Like, there are things like you can still do the normal social things. Like, it's okay.
The alcohol thing blows people's minds, doesn't it? Because they're just like, oh, you just can't have beer. And I'm like, well, no, that's it. And they're like, but you can have everything else. I'm like, yeah. They're like, fair enough. Because that's mainly what everybody else prefers anyway. So
no one likes beer. That's the thing as an adult. Like, no one actually enjoys it.
No. We could be making... the comments could be coming in the chat going, we love beer now. But it's like... I think it's that... I don't know. For me, it was when I was growing up, I didn't think... Because I didn't really see it. Again, like when you don't know what you don't see, sort of thing. Yeah. But like having a relationship with someone that isn't PKU, you know what I mean? That could eat something different to you, that could eat something that you can't eat in front of you, and that's okay, sort of thing. Or cooking something that isn't PKU. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and that for me, for a fair bit of time, to be fair, when growing up, felt foreign. Because it was like, they need to really know, they really need to be the same as me, they need to do that sort of thing. But it's like, actually, no, I can still cook other things. I'm not going to taste test and stuff like that. And it's just like, so I don't know, did you find that strange? Because I assume your husband is not PKU.
He is not PKU.
Yeah.
But no, it's funny because the amount of questions we get, like if going out for a work meal and obviously Chris comes along, it's funny because people will be like, oh, so you know, if they don't know, sometimes obviously I don't get into huge details. Like, oh, so you're not eating meat? And I was like, oh, so Chris does that? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, doesn't he go vegan? I was like, no. Why would? You know, it's like, no, he's got to eat his, you know, he's still got to eat his protein and things. And I think it's respecting each other's kind of, you know, if Chris did ever want to kind of go vegan, not that it's probably likely to happen, you know, for me, but then also it's not, you just do separate meals. But that some people, that blows their mind, you know, the fact that we have to do separate meals and things like that. But I think for me, yeah, it was, I guess you do wonder, like, oh, what's it going to be like having PKU kids? Like, there's that question of, oh, some people are like, wouldn't you prefer a PKU kid? And it's like, well, yeah, it'd be easier, but also no, because I don't want them to go through what I've gone through. I'd rather they just have the normal diet, you know, just for the convenience of me having to cook, you know, 3 different meals. But no, I think it's always been, yeah, it's one of those things you do kind of just learn. And again, that's what I said about not making it a taboo subject. Because then it doesn't turn into this thing of, oh, I can't eat meat around Claire, or oh, I have to be different around Claire. And it's like, no, you just get on with it, you know. And I think the important thing for me was not to make my husband into a carer. That's one of the things of like, you know, I want to be my own person. I want to do my own things and to figure out, right, how am I going to get through this on my own back kind of thing. You know, obviously I get help when I need it, but also actually, like, I need to sort myself out, because if I let someone else take it over, then I can blame them if it all goes wrong. Actually, no, this is on me. I need to look after myself, you know. So I think that's been the main thing of kind of like, no, I want to do this myself. I'll have help as and when I need it, but yeah, I want to, you know, get on with it. But yeah, no, it's funny kind of.
Well, I think that's a good subject. I think it's a good subject area to talk about, because it isn't necessarily considered too much, you know, because that is just normal adult living, isn't it, in a sense? And like, I've been with people that have ate meat. You know, my partner now is vegan, and my mum's vegan, so the smell of meat when her partner eats meat is like, whoa, it just smells weird. It's like burnt flesh. But it's like, it's not a crackdown. They can't have certain things, or you can't do certain things, because ultimately, I think it comes down to what you're saying about that blending process. You just want, you know, you don't want to be viewed special by everybody within your life. And you kind of just want to go, right, I will make some meals match up occasionally. And some other times, we will have separate dishes. And that's just the nature of what it's going to be. And when we match, we match. If we don't, we don't. And, you know, and I think it's just having that comfortability in your basis of being PKU, to go that's okay, rather than, like you said, trying to treat him like a carer, or trying to enforce and crack down things and go, please don't eat this in front of me. Because ultimately, I think if you need that, then fine, but ultimately I don't think that's necessarily going to make a healthy balance, is it, in the relationship? Because it's always going to be a power difference of like, please look after me, and it's like, actually I'm an adult, I should be able to relatively look after myself.
As tempting as it is to go, please look after me.
Well, no, you do that occasionally, but if you did that all the time, it would get a bit boring. Like, have we got any? We've just got thanks for doing this. I have the greatest respect for you, both of you, navigating this balance really well. Is there any other areas that you would want to talk about then, Claire?
I think Holly asked me a question on Twitter about PIP allowance. I kind of
Are you on PIP? I
am PIP.
I did not get PIP. I did not. So.
I am incredibly lucky that I have my amazing mother, who has worked in banking and then worked in Citizens Advice Bureau, literally getting people disability benefit payments. And
That's a good connection to have.
It's a very. I think she's been helping. I think she has helped Kate with like kind of some of the legal stuff and things like that. My number one thing: always fight it. Always fight it, because the people that are doing the tribunal, they are not DWP, so they are different, and they actually are quite nice. PIP is very hard. It is very emotional. Go to speak to NSPKU, Citizens Advice, things like that. But I do have it. Obviously, don't want to say what I'm. A bit private, but that's fine. Yeah. But and they get expected because they're probably asked. Has
it been renewed every couple of years for you? It does get renewed, doesn't it?
Yeah, let me go back. So I was on DLA. I think my parents were like one of the first kind of real fighters for DLA, and it was kind of how much supervision. That was what changed. It wasn't just, oh, this is what's wrong with me. It's how much supervision I needed as a child. Yeah. At 16, it went from DLA to PIP. And that was the same time, obviously, as I said, I went off diet, so I wasn't sure. I could have fought it then, I could have applied for it then, and I did try, but I just wasn't in the right place to be able to make a good enough argument for myself. I was going through that I don't need help, mother stage of my life.
I mean, that's just typical teenage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Typical teenager, so I was just like, I tried, I applied, I failed, which makes perfect sense when you kind of think back to it now. And then just before lockdown, ironically, it was, I was sitting here thinking, actually, Mum's like, maybe we should give this another go. I was like, okay, let's give it another go. And she was able to write down the argument for me. Basically, she's done everything for me, so I'm not good at giving advice when it comes to PIP, because she's just a superwoman. And I said, so you had the main interview, which is absolutely awful. It's as bad as everyone says it is.
Yeah, it's bad.
If you can walk, you can talk. You're basically not disabled. It's that kind of thing.
Can you chop food? Great.
Yeah,
you can.
Can you chop food? Can you cook? Can you? And it's like there's so much more to it. But I say, so we got the no, and then it was COVID. It was lockdown. And so we'll keep trying to fight. Mum kept trying to say, these are my arguments. They were saying because I was learning to drive, then that qualifies me not as disabled, even though it's taken me 4 years to learn to drive. And it's like, it's taken me a long time, but it's interesting they're thinking through of, it is interesting.
They're basically trying to find out why they shouldn't give it to you. They're always, throughout the whole of that process, and I think this is probably what people should know with PIP, is they are trying to trip you up, and they are trying to basically have a good reason to go, no, we're not giving you money. Yeah. And
it's such a shame, because obviously the people that, there are people that do abuse it, and they've made it so much worse for those people that do need it, and that because of their disabilities, they're not good at doing forms. They can't fill these in. They don't have the, fortunately we've got Citizens Advice Bureau to help, things like that, but it's so difficult. So we argued, appealed, and then I won it, and then it's not been renewed. So I think I've got it indefinitely, kind of. Ooh. So, So if you make a good enough, I think it's mainly focusing on time it takes to do diet. We didn't get anything on mobility, didn't get anything on anything like that, but it's just time managing the diet and medicine. And PKU food does count as medicine. And that's the big thing, is that they've really acknowledged that PKU treatment is medicine. It's not, it's just food. It does actually contribute towards your health and things like that. So
I think like food therapy was the thing that got mentioned. So when I went through, basically I was quite opportunistic, where they said that they weren't doing in-person things for PIP in the first lockdown, and I was like, great, don't have to see anyone, they don't have to look at me and go, you're okay, you're not missing a leg, great. So decided to do the whole PIP process. And then I kind of got rejected, and then it was slightly opening up. And to be honest, and I'll be honest, and I think it's, it's probably a route that I should still pursue. I kind of was like, I've got a lot more things that I could be doing with my time. And they knocked me back, and I know that they knocked me back and go, well, he won't come back. And I didn't come back, so I played into their thing. But, and I know I probably would get it at tribunal, because you get like the arsenal behind you of like all this about PKU and stuff. Because they didn't read the medical, so you get medical statements and they don't read it at the first. The
pages
first
and pages explaining how much time, why it takes this much time, how much it affects you, and they don't.
They don't read that. So obviously that comes into play with tribunal. But for me, it is an emotional thing. It felt hard to be so negative about the condition.
It's always worst case scenario, it is always, what is the worst case scenario of PKU? Is that I overeat, I become disabled, my husband has become a carer. And it's horrible to think about because we're so used to trying to be positive and trying to put a positive spin on it, and we don't want to be negative, but they need to hear the worst case scenario. They have to, for them to fully understand the extent of what it can do, and it is really hard. It's really, really difficult. But
I think it's worth caveating, highlighting, and going. It's going to be a long process. You have to be quite, and also quite strong-minded throughout the whole thing, really, because I got to a stage of, I think it's like October, and things were obviously starting to open up, and I went, out of all the things that I could be doing, and it was just like, this is more hassle than what it's worth for me personally. But I know that, but the problem is obviously on paper and in a career sense, to them, I am actually doing really well. So if you are doing quite well, it's sad when you have to try and overplay a lot, and then they go, well, you're not bad enough. And it's like, this condition's not going anywhere. Because I had DLA for life. I had a letter that said DLA for life. But then the Tory government changed the wording, so the letter didn't mean anything. I'm like, damn you. So, and then it's just like, so I'm really glad if you've got PIP for indefinite, that's well done.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. I say definitely, it is definitely worth fighting it. But Polly asked if receiving it had effect on the person's PKU treatment, and if so, in what way. So what the money has done for me is I've been able to have more freedom with buying food. This is and I've only just been having it for about a year, so I'm trying to still figure out. But basically, it means that I buy more expensive vegan products. I buy berries. I buy, the really expensive stuff. But it just makes a difference in actual quality of life. That's what has made the difference for me. And there's other things, like I think my mum was talking about maybe getting a cleaner kind of come in, which I'm not a big fan of, because that's one thing at a time. But that's the thing. It's all about what makes better quality of life. What could help with time? Would it be someone coming in to cook actually a whole load of bulk meals and paying them to do so?
Some people do that, don't they? I know people that have got PIP that do have meal delivery, and all their money goes on meal delivery. And I think whatever you want to spend your money on needs to line up with what you're saying is the reason for the money needed, in a sense. And I think if those two align, then it becomes a lot more logical to a person that's judging it, rather than like, I just want extra cash, and it's like, but why, sort of thing. I think it's the same when we had DLA. You can just afford a lot more things in terms of food and making stuff from scratch and that sort of thing, and you can afford, having to make a meal up from scratch every time. Yeah.
It's just a bit in the bank that means that money's just one less thing to kind of worry about. It's just one less thing to kind of think, oh God, I'm panicking. Like, it is a kind of little, okay, that's, I've got something there, I'm not gonna so it's a hard process. It's very emotional. There are people out there that can help. NSPKU are awesome at this, this stuff, and Suzanne and, like I say, Kate Leroyd and stuff are really helpful. So, but yeah, it's a long road. Worth it at the end, but it's a really long road to kind of go down as PIP. It's hard.
Yeah, I think it's probably, it's worth knowing that before undertaking, certainly. And I think it's that going, it's going to be tough. If you really need it, keep pushing through it, and judge it based on your own. For me, it's like judging how many plates do you want to spin. If you've got enough room to spin a few more plates, do the PIP route. And that sort of thing, and it's all preference, isn't it, really, in a sense? So cool. No, that covers it. Really. If there is any more questions, I think we've probably got about 10 more minutes, so if you've got any more questions, pop it in the chat. But yeah, if you want to tell us about the difference, you have micro tabs, and this isn't necessarily a sponsorship video, but what's the difference between doing tablets to doing liquid? Because I only have ever taken liquid, so it's that. Yeah. How's the body effects different? What is it? Do you feel a little bit more confident doing it outside, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I personally have always struggled with drinks. I've always, because I done a wine tasting course, this is really random, but I done a wine tasting course, and part of the course was a bit fun. I think it's for like Hindu, and you had this litmus paper. You test it on your tongue, and it's meant to show kind of your reactions to flavour. And some people, they can't taste it at all, and to others it's really sour and that turns out to be me. I've got a really sensitive palate, which is great when you've got PKU. So other people were putting this paper on this mouth and were like, I can't taste anything. I was like, ah!
So when did you find this out then? You can't believe you're taking a wine tasting course when you were a kid, so I assume
no, it was like, a couple of years ago. But I was like, oh, that's really interesting to know. So I think, I've always struggled to take drinks, and in my ideal world, it has always either just been an injection or a tablet, which I could take in the form. No, flavour is the biggest thing for me, because it's just been such a pain. So I've always been a huge kind of, I really want tablets, and there are obviously the tablets, Vitaflex. Oh, those are the vitamin tablets, but the big
ones, yeah.
Were fine, except they're too big, they taste horrible, and there's so many of them. If any other aspect had changed, those three things, they were small and it tastes horrible, and there were loads of them, you wouldn't mind. Or if they were big but they didn't have any taste, and there's loads of them, but all three together, I couldn't get on with them. And then I was at the NXPK conference last February, literally, I think a couple of weeks before the lockdown, which is weird to think. And one of my friends said to me, oh, there's this company, and they're doing the micro tablets. And I'd seen it on Facebook in America. Again, America has everything first, bless them. But they don't have insurance to be able to afford anything.
They've got to pay for everything. That's the crap thing, isn't it?
It's much better. They've got to pay for everything. And I was just like, the micro tablets, and I ran. So if anyone saw me and it's PKU 2020 running to the thing, that's what I was running towards. And I was like, oh my God. And I saw them, and I instantly wanted to try them. And that's what the conference is so good for, isn't it? It's a great interior, new products and new foods and things like that. And I tried them, and they didn't have any flavour, and they're easy to take, and they're small, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I immediately went home to dietitian. I need some samples, please sort me out. And that's when it's lockdown. I was like, oh, this is perfect. I've got nothing else to do but try samples. And it was weird, and it's been really weird transferring over from there to the drinks, because I think it was hard to transfer, because as much as people hate drinks, it's really hard to let go. I remember when I went from Maximum, there's a throwback.
Yes.
Cooler. I think I was like one of the last teenagers to do it. Because
did you hold on with the
I held on because I hated change. I was so scared. I remember Edale one summer. I don't know if any dietitians watching this might remember me, but I was like, I am not doing Cooler. I don't want it. I don't.
And you took Maximum to Edale.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Fair play.
Yeah, all the time. Oh gosh, I feel old now, don't we?
Yeah, it's like, but I remember when doing on the trials for Cooler, because Cooler wasn't even a thing, and then they're like, we need some guinea pigs. I was first in line because it was an injection, so that's my caveat. And it was like, this actually tastes relatively all right compared to what we had before. It was,
I love it. But so it's in a similar feeling. It's that kind of, even though I don't enjoy it, it's something. I was on the GMP Vitaflow drink Sphere. I was on the Red Sphere, which are a lot better. But again, have to be made, have to be prepared, have to, have water and a shaker and things like that. So it was scary to move on from them. But it was just, it was so nice just being able to literally take them in 5 seconds. Like, I'd have an alarm go off, and then I'd have to be like, oh, all right, time to take tablets. You pull them out and you have them. But the weirdest thing is that, the drinks are really filling, aren't they? Like, they can really fill you up because they're basically food. These aren't filling at all. And it's really weird. Really.
Does it feel like you haven't taken anything, in a sense?
Yeah, which in a way, it sounds like, because that's what you're so used to, that sounds so foreign and strange. Yeah. But in any way, it's so much better because I can take them whenever I want. Whereas before, my whole life was rotated around my drinks, about when I could have my drinks, when I couldn't have the drinks. I couldn't have it before bed because I might feel sick. I couldn't have it before dinner because, I'd have to have it before dinner so I wouldn't be too full for dinner. Or I wouldn't, have dinner and then have to wait an hour before I could eat. Whereas these, I can just take whenever I want. And it's so weird, and it doesn't fill you up. And yet at first you're like, I'm so hungry. Oh my, what am I going to do? I'm so hungry. But then it's like, I could eat food. I can eat normal. It's been really cool. And I went camping the other weekend, and it was so nice just to be like, I just took a few of my pots of tablets.
Yeah.
And, you know,
they're quite small to transport, aren't they? They're quite
so much. Rather than having either the cooler packets, which get hot in the sun, and you know, and then and I always seem to break them, and they always seem to go in all my bags. I don't know
and it's lovely liquid to go everywhere. That is,
it's horrible. Or the the GMP drinks, which would then I'd make them, I'd leave them on the side, they get warm, or you'd have to take a whole 2-litre bottle of water to wash them out, and then you know you have to carry a shaker and. It's just all you need is a bottle of water, you know, which you can buy anywhere. You can buy any shop, any country around the world, and they've been like so good for me. And they don't have any. I remember seeing on Facebook, someone going, "Oh, I don't like the smell of the micro tabs," and I'm like, why are they being stuck around long enough to smell? I don't give them a chance.
Just knocking them. You're just knocking tablets back, Claire. That's all.
Yeah. Because I have the vitamin tablets as well, so that's the only thing, you do have to have vitamin tablets on top of them, which I know can put some people off, and it put me off at first, but then when you're already in the process of taking a couple of tablets, just another one isn't actually that much of a kind of big deal, you know. It's like, I'll just have another one. So
well, I think the great thing is that we're in a realm now where you can pick and choose, whereas when obviously we're just talking about Maximum and we're talking about Cola. You literally went, everybody was on this, then you all moved to this. And now the beauty is that we can at least branch, and it suits the lifestyles a bit more than anything, rather than, you know, for some people, powder still works all the time. For some people, it's purely ready-made. I have a mixture of powder and ready-made. So I have powder for when I'm near a kettle, so that's mainly in the mornings. And then I have ready-made for like the afternoons and the evenings. But the caveat is I can't drink that food or drink that medicine on an empty stomach because I feel sick afterwards. So it's just that kind of, you accept it changes. But the good thing for us in today's world is that we do, you know, we're sorting out our diets through different methods, but it still does the job. And as long as it suits people, I think that's where we're saying about the branch of treatments, isn't it, that we should have available eventually. So yeah, I was just interested with the microtabs because it makes complete sense if you've got a sensitive tongue for something to not taste and for something to not really hit your tongue, because you can bypass it, can't you? So.
I think Cambric stuff, there's all kind of, you can mix it in shakes and you can mix it in, you know, different foods and things like that, and which sounds great, but for me, I've never thought that's been helpful for me. Other people it might, because I'm like, well, what if I don't have my smoothie maker?
Well, I'm just like, the adding in food stuff makes no sense, because I'm like, why are you putting more pressure on you finishing all that food than it is? It's like,
and you know, that all works well being able to put in a smoothie, but what on those days when you don't have a smoothie maker or something breaks or things like that, I just want something that's as simple as possible. I just get it done with. I don't have any choice, so I might as well just get
but like you said, it suits your lifestyle, and the good thing is that we can pick the things that suit our lifestyle. So I guess like any questions that you have for me that come into your head, or anything else that you want to cover, Claire?
No, I don't think so. How do I get into film school?
Depends if you want to make it or if you want to just if you want to study it or make it. It's up to you.
I just study it. I just want to make film. I just want to watch films all day as my job.
I mean, you like blogging, so all film critics start as bloggers at the moment. So you might maybe just turn. Now you've covered PKU. Tick that off. Yeah. Now onto the film blogs. That's it. So.
Yeah. Put a good word for me.
I think that's all you got to do. You just honestly build an audience, that sort of thing, and that's all you got to do. And just love film, which is what you do, so it's fine. Cool. So I guess if there's no other final questions in the chat.
How do you find your prescription food? Do you have problems with prescription food ordering it, or is it okay, or do you not bother?
It's okay for now. I say this and now it's going to mess up. I've had issues with a chemist basically saying that they wouldn't serve me because my stuff takes up too much space. which you kind of could argue is discrimination.
Yeah.
But I just moved to a different chemist and kind of just went, right, you're blacklisted, fair enough. And I have my medicine on home delivery from the companies because I can live without bread. I can live without that sort of stuff if I need to. I can't live without the medicine. So as long as I can guarantee the medicine turns up every month, that's the main thing. All the extra stuff, all the extra bells and whistles is extra. But yeah, I think it's just about being very honest and building up a good rapport with a chemist, to be fair. Yeah. My doctors wise, I've only ever met them once and I've been here for 3 years. And they were like, we've never met someone with PKU. I'm like, oh, I get this all the time. And then, you know, you just go, right, give me these things and I won't ever book you again. So, and that was how I laid it out with my doctors pretty much. But there are issues, and I've seen a lot of doctors that limit items and stuff. And I used to have a doctor that limited items, and I was just like, you know, I can't live on 1 pack of cookies for a month. No one can. And this was when I was a kid. I'm like, cookies are cookies. So it's, I think the good thing is now you've got a very on-the-ball dietitian team, hopefully within where you are based. So that can kind of come down on them like a ton of bricks if you need them to.
Strongly worded. I think it's definitely helped me a few cases.
Yeah, it's kind of going...
Yeah,
it's like, this isn't right. The way you're treating this is not right. But understanding and being very honest with the chemist that it does take up a fair bit of space. And almost building up that rapport with them, I think, will help. But yeah, I have had issues, and I do think it needs to... I just don't get why I don't get it from the dietitians. I think that would make the total sense of streamlining the whole process, and I can order my food from my dietitians and it comes to me.
Yeah.
How is that not, you know, why is that not, why do I have to go, because it, you know, when you're working, it takes up a lot of time. So the chemist that got like iffy with me was because they were only open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And it's like, I work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. When am I meant to collect this food? And I'm not, and all delivery stuff, or most of the delivery stuff that I find with chemists are for elderly. They're not for us. So it's kind of, or it's not for me anyway. So I'm like, I'd like it delivered if you could, but no. So I don't know. Post-pandemic, it might be a bit different because people are obviously going to be a lot less inclined to mingle, a lot less inclined to come and collect stuff. Delivery services have gone through the roof, so we don't know with that sort of stuff. But certainly, yeah, I've had a fair few battles with doctors, chemists, all sorts. How about you? Is it all okay at the moment, or do you make sure different things come at different times?
Yeah, it's kind of settled down now. Like you say, it's all a bit tentative, isn't it? You always worry that it's going to be one thing that's going to fall off. Because I was doing home delivery for a lot of my food and the medication, but then I was finding home delivery companies were really hard to get hold of, to get things on order, especially when it comes to food. They'd always send the wrong things, or too many of the wrong things, and I was just like, you know what, this is being real pain. So I just kind of skipped the middle. I'm very lucky where I moved. I moved right next to my GP and chemist, and it's literally on the way to work because I don't drive at the moment, so I can pick it up on the way home. But so what I do now is that I got a list of food to try. Another thing I'd done in the lockdown was I got a whole list. I was like, my dietitian, I was like, right, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to give everything a go, see what I like. And that's what the substitutes, that's what I recommend doing, is just going to a dietitian going, right, give me all the substitutes, I want to try everything. Because there's always something that gets missed off. But yeah, so I'd done that. And I was like, right, these are the substitutes I want. And my problem is that if I wasn't ordering it month by month, they would take it off my prescription list. Yeah. It means I couldn't order it again. And like you say, like, because you know, it's like food shopping list. Sometimes you're in the mood for cookies, sometimes you're not. You know, I don't always need cake mix, but I might want it on my birthday or for Christmas to make Christmas pudding. So, you know, I said to the dietitian, I said, look, these are the things I want on this. This is the amount I want. So, like a pack of crackers, you know, the low profile crackers. I'm like, I eat them like a packet of crisps. I can't just have one packet of low protein crackers. I need, you know, at least 4. And I said, you know, this is how many I need. I said, I need it that these stay on. And she wrote a letter to my GP. My GP was funny about cookies and crisps cookies and biscuits once, but then, like I say, firm letter from the dietitian immediately was like, no, this is something that she said, you know, the thing of like, they recommend 51 units of protein food. This is how much unit this is. This is how much unit this is. This is how much unit. And I was like, yes, go on.
Yes.
I've read the letter. Yes. But so they sent a letter going, look, this is what Claire wants to add. These are to only be removed at Claire's say so. Do not remove them in any other way. And I think I've got about 16 food items on my prescription list. And I think if you're classical PKU and trying to get back on diet, I think the low protein foods are the only way you can do it, because there's just not enough out there in the supermarkets. There's some stuff, but there just isn't enough out there in the supermarkets to be able to completely substitute everything. So and some of the stuff's really good, like Mavelia's bread is, when it's not full of holes, it's lovely. And you know, prescription food has come such a long way. It's still, like I say, still ways to go, but it has come.
It's a dramatic change. But I do think the sad thing is, it is postcode lottery with where you're based. So I I'm trying to think, about 40 items on my prescription list that I can tick and choose. And it's like, I know some people are really strict, and I know people that have more, and it's like, but I do have that problem of going, they either take it very literal and take repeat prescription as, what I had last month is what you're getting next month. And it's like, okay, I didn't put milk on last month because I don't need milk, but I do this month. Or they literally just go, you haven't ordered this for 6 months. Why? And it's going off. And I'm like, could we pull it back on, please? Because I had a surplus of stock and now I don't, sort of thing. So, or the famous questions go, so this isn't coming until next week. Can you live without that? And I'm like, I can't eat any other bread, so no. Could you get it in a little bit quicker? Sort of thing. It's like, can't just go to a shop, and this isn't a choice element for me to come to a chemist to get free food. It's like,
luxury, isn't it? No, it's not a luxury, because there is no other alternative. I just have bread.
Yeah. So I guess that's why I make sure my medicine at least comes directly from the company. But there are certain companies that are really slow with their deliveries, and I think it's just about being understanding and knowing that system, that certain brands will take ages. So factor that in with your stock use. But it's like you said, it would be so easy if it was like Amazon or something like that, and you could just go boom, 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 boom. Come on this day, great, sort of thing. Yeah. And it's all this juggling, isn't it? Yeah. And I guess that's what. Did you put that in your PIP? Did you put the prescription stuff in PIP and everything like that and stuff?
Yeah, that takes and things like that, and the emotional kind of thing of that takes. And like I said before, you know, this is another thing of being an adult PKU, isn't it? It's not just food and prep and weighing and blood tests, and it's also prescription and having to sort out prescription. What if I run out of prescription? Do you have a stock? Do you have to basically stock check everything? And it's just another thing that we've got to do.
Rotate stock as if we're a shop, so we're not got things out of date. Yeah. But yeah, cool. I think that's probably us. That's an hour and a half. It's flew by. There you go.
Yeah.
Half of Endgame, as you were saying before, so half of watching Endgame. Well, cheers everybody for joining us. Cheers Claire for giving up his own. Hopefully everyone's appreciated our green decor going around us.
And gamer themed as well for some reason.
There you go. We look like proper nerds. So yeah, have a great rest of the PKU day, everybody, and cheers for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye guys.